Well, hello, that's me again. Today is the February 27th. It is a short month, so I think so this will be the last video this month. And I want to talk today a little bit on Russia and China, just a little bit. But before we go, let me give you a little bit of the seat wrap. This one I stole from Larry Johnson, my friend. You can read wonderful sit rep on his site, on his blog. And here's the map as it existed on the February 23, and this is around Bakhmut. And as you can see yourself, it's a good map because it gives you a little bit of scale, which most of the time maps do not provide. I'm talking about maps which are conducted by primarily Russian fanboys who pretend that they know something about the operational art. But as you can see yourself already on the 23rd, I'm sorry, to November 26, it was clear that Bakhmut was pretty much in the tactical envelopment, and so we know what is going to happen. We all know, and news today, they kind of support the assertion that the Wagner storm groups already fighting in the center of Bakhmut, and there are all indications that basically whatever is left within Bakhmut, not 2,500, it's actually between the 10 and 20,000. Armed forces of Ukraine units left there primarily from the western Ukraine. It has been confirmed now, and yeah, it's probably they have no way of really escaping it now. So this is a little bit of the tactical minutiae, if you wish. And then of course we have this scandalous story, really, and it just shows what I am on the record, and it's both about desperation and low class of American top bureaucrats, especially those who basically smeared themselves by working for Biden administration, and that's the whole other story altogether. But look at this, CIA guy, the big honcho, Mr. Burns, who actually for some reason passed for diplomat, he started to complain in what's the name, was this CNN or CBS, yeah, Face the Nation. And the Hill immediately reported that CIA Director William Burns said that he communicated in a meeting with Russia's spy chief the serious consequences that would follow if Moscow ever used a nuclear weapon, a warning that Burns said his Russian counterpart understood. Burns lies here, as it's pretty much standard for any American top bureaucrat today, and because obviously it was Burns and Susan Rice who came up with this baloney that Russia is about to use the nuclear weapons. It was created and done only for one reason, to underscore how Russia was badly losing, and that of course they were rotating, so to speak, this myth that because of that Russia is about to use nuclear weapon. It's a complete baloney, and Mr. Burns and whatever they do, it's pretty much designed for the consumption of the domestic public, who of course absolutely naturally doesn't read Russia's military doctrine and doesn't understand the fundamentals of the nuclear policy of Russia. And of course then Burns comes up with this, and this is not the first time that American counterpart of Russian diplomats or intel services, he talks about Mr. Naryshkin, who, as you might know, the chief of the SVR, Foreign Service Intelligence of Russia, so it's kind of sort of equivalent of CIA, and here he is. There was a very defined attitude on the part of Mr. Naryshkin, Burns said, and sense of cockiness and hubris, in sense reflecting Putin's own view, that he can make time work for him, that he believes he can grind down Ukrainians, that he can wear down our European allies, that political fatigue will eventually set in. Mr. Burns again lies, because obviously that's what he does. I mean, and again, he's a low-class bureaucrat and a desperate at that, because he basically brings up the first he lies about the reaction of Mr. Naryshkin, who is extremely cultured man, by the way, engineer by the background, apart from being the intelligence guy, professional intelligence guy, unlike Mr. Burns, who I don't know, he was diplomat, he was probably on farm sometime, but I mean, it's Biden's administration tradition to appoint absolutely incompetent people. And Mr. Naryshkin himself today, he comes up and speaks about it, and he says that basically it's all crap. And I still positively assess the nature and the result of the meeting, of which Mr. Burns talks about with my colleague William Burns. Naryshkin said, noting that the negotiations in Turkey capital were substantial and proceeded in a very comfortable atmosphere. And he then notes, with calm demeanor, which Naryshkin is known for, that basically the reason Burns is hurting so much and come up with all those funny and made up stories is because he understood that it's not just Putin. Because he talks very straight about that overwhelming majority of Russian population shares so-called Mr. Putin views. And of course I understand, he basically stated that when Mr. Burns understood that for American top bureaucrats, be that Strop Talbot at some point of time, be that Madeleine Albright, any kind of the issue shown to them that they are not necessarily that great of a power. The United States is still great power, but that they have to consider others, and they consider this as cockiness and arrogance and hubris. Really, it's again projection, and this is on the American part in this particular respect, and this is all about the desperation. And when in November Mr. Burns was meeting Naryshkin in Istanbul, it was already clear where the whole war was going. Today we already know the whole front is in movement, and I spoke to people also from the front lines, literally, and they confirmed that those mobilized people have not been actually introduced in the battle yet in any meaningful numbers. So they're still in training, and they, just being introduced slowly, piecemeal, because whatever is happening right now, more than enough to not only contain whatever the armed forces of Ukraine, or rather what's left of them, are trying to accomplish, but even to conduct the offensive operations, such as you can see yourself in and around Bakhmut, but there are other things, and Kupiansk operational direction. So there's a lot of what is happening there. But I want to get to the, so to speak, more important things. And here are more important things. We will start with Mr. Chemezov. And Mr. Chemezov is a huge, big honcho. If you would ask, for example, what is the largest corporation, at least in in Europe, if you think that this is Siemens, which is considered the largest corporation, which is 200-something thousand employees, well, there is obviously Rosatom, which competes directly with Siemens, but no, the whole issue of the largest corporation is easily settled. I'm talking about Europe primarily, is settled easily because it is Rostec, which employs and directly controls 800 different enterprises and plant, and employs more than 800,000 people. When you consider all subcontractors, we are reaching into way above million and about 2,000 enterprises. Mr. Chemezov, who runs this thing, spoke a week ago, and speaking about the situation with the Rostec and Russian military industry, he just flatly stated that, and it was broadcast on the famous military acceptance Zvezda TV channel broadcast. You can find it on YouTube even. And he stated that basically the Russian military industry increased the production of everything, but especially the munitions, all kinds of them, including smart munitions, high precision, 50 times. And he basically stated that, of course, the first item in this case are munitions. And he's saying that the volumes which we produce now are colossal. Then he goes on and explains, and this is another thing, and listen, he talks to Rosbusiness Consulting, which is not really that pro-Russian resource. They're kind of like commercial capitalist type thingy, you know, the newspaper and the website and TV. But even despite being the pro-Western as of pretty much all of their history, here they are, you know, they speak to Chemezov. And then he says that, look at this is highlighted in yellow, that he says that, of course, sanctions and limitations somewhat, you know, impede our efforts. But, and here comes the Wowzer, they made us to do the localization across the board for every kind of production item. And that's what he says. If there would have been those sanctions starting from 2014, then today it would have been much more difficult for us to expand our, well, he talks about expanding production in terms of quality and quantity. This is a Wowzer for anybody who thinks that sanctions do any harm. In reality, Mr. Chemezov himself states that no, actually, if not for those sanctions, we would have been actually much slower developing our industries and increasing this production to do this tremendous, I mean, manifold, order of magnitude, actually, productive capacity. And here comes this other thing which we need to discuss, and this relates also not only for the stupidity of the Western analysts who have to admit now, for example, remember this price cap which was supposed to limit Russia's profits and financing of her economy. They still think that for some reason Russia depends 50% on this carbohydrate or whatever it is, you know, oil and gas and other resources like this. But look at this. Academics, Russia selling oil way over price cap. Yeah, they've been warned, those idiots, from Janet Yellen down to that it wouldn't work. It actually will harm West again. And here it is. You can easily download this report by following this headline at the oilprice.com, and the calculations show that Russia sold its crude oil for 74 per barrel on average, according to the paper which is called Assessing the Impact of the International Sanctions on Russian Oil Export, published on the Social Science Research Network. Well, the question is that it's like you tell those people that that's what's going to happen, because anybody with the common sense understands this. They still don't get it, and they still believe into those myths and which they were spreading around since I mean, hell knows when. I mean, Russia was under sanctions practically non-stop. And here we come to this issue of which I wanted to talk about today. It is this. Remember, let me remind you, this was 4 years ago, almost 4 years ago, July 25th, 2019, and this British, well, it's actually globalist rag, and I mean, people who write for this are not really smart. They say now that how Vladimir Putin embrace of China weakens Russia. He needs Xi Jinping more than Mr. Xi needs him, and Central Asia is changing as a result. It was I don't know, it was some kind of the opinion piece written by editorial staff, and of course, as always, which is absolutely traditional, they cannot find their their ass in the brightly lit room with the both hands, because they don't know Russia, they don't understand real geopolitical balance, how it is formed, and as the result, they of course misunderstood completely what was going on, and now they have to sit and be in complete wowzer situation for them when they understand that actually it is China, not Russia, who is a junior partner in this axis, and it has everything to do with the main geopolitical tool of human history. It is Cold Warfare. China's economy and China's obviously achievements, they are gigantic. They are just absolutely colossal. They dwarf those of the United States and also Russia. The fact is they probably dwarf both Russian and American economic capabilities combined. But while China is gigantic, which is only natural for the country with a population of 1.5 billion, we have to understand what we are talking about here, because I am on the record. You can quote me on this, and I also spoke about this paper which was produced about the situation with if United States decides to attack China and allegedly fights for Taiwan, that in the end the paper actually is correct. United States is still, because it remains an immense naval power, still can bloody Chinese nose dramatically. And then, of course, there is the situation that since 1950, China has exactly zero successful and advanced operational experience. And let me remind you why it is important to understand. And let me show you something. Here it is. You see this? This is Comac 919. I already showed you before. Chinese commercial aircraft. And as you can see yourself, while many of those so-called economic analysts who are stupid people who graduated some economics, got their economics degrees from some schools in the United States and Europe, but look attentively at this Comac, which is supposed to fly sometime soon. And this is the Chinese pride, so to speak, and joy. Look at this. Do you see much of it made in China? No. You have radar cover, you have a little bit of empennage made in China, a little bit of fuselage, everything else from every single system, especially engines, and especially avionics, and auxiliary power unit, everything is done or made by the West. This is the thing for any normal analyst which immediately catches the eye, but as I already stated, there are no normal analysts and people who understand what they are dealing with in the what is called today Western analytical community. I do not need to go there much explaining this. Take it from obviously a real serious professional, both from CIA and State Department, and he's talking about that Russian moving towards a mutual defense pact. Larry Johnson, he wrote it 5 days ago, and I think so he is correct, because will it be formalized? We don't know, but again, it's a moot point. The point is China needs this pact, not Russia. Why, you may ask? Well, and here comes this issue. You saw yourself just a minute ago that this is Comac, which China produces, while still kind of not really in serial production. And as you can see yourself, it is completely a Western thing. And China depends on Western technology still rather dramatically, despite the fact that, yeah, if you look at any or most of your iPhones or what have you, you will see them yourself that they are made in China. China produces enormous amount of the consumer goods, just colossal, and it's long ago became one of the leading, well, actually leading, albeit not the only one, leading the manufacturing plant of the world, and China produces all of it. But when you look attentively at what is happening and why I'm not skeptical, it's just the fact of life. We're talking about that China is desperately needs the Russian support. As you saw yourself, just Comac 919, it's basically not Chinese aircraft. At the same time, when you have you take a look at Russian MS-21 and Sukhoi Superjet, they are fully Russian made now. And as you can see, so the most important, I've been on it constantly. It is the Russian engines, Russian avionics, Russian systems, Russian auxiliary power unit, and this is just to demonstrate to you what it means in terms of the high-tech and crucial high-tech industries and what Mr. Chemezov speaks about. And here we come to this situation with the yet another BS being spread primarily by people from State Department and CIA and obviously Wall Street Journal and all those dirty journals who continue to basically bullshit people. That's what they do. They have degrees in bullshit. And it is the fact that China supposedly supplies Russia with some kind of the little aid. Not is supplying, but allegedly will supply soon. You know what? I think so. It's really stretching of the facts, to put it mildly. China cannot provide any special little aid to Russia because Russia doesn't need it, and that's the fact which they still cannot, resign themselves to, the fact that Russia supplies herself pretty much all across the board, including, as Mr. Chemezov, who was speaking to the military acceptance a week ago. You can look up again on YouTube, it's there. And he's speaking that basically, even in terms of military semiconductors, I mean, microelectronics, we completely supply ourselves. We produce it completely on our own. He does admit difficulties, obviously, with the developing of the microelectronics production, but primarily for the civilian use. In terms of military, everything, Russia completely independent, and you could see yourself what is happening right now. And as I already stated, there are things happening on the front which you will see yourself very soon, and they are happening actually. We speak, for example, Mr. Chemezov already stated that we use Kinzhal hypersonic missiles extremely extensively, and that is why they also increased dramatically, I mean, evidently, the production of the Kinzhal hypersonic weapons. And you go about this and you look at this in the proper framework and in proper perspective, you begin to understand that Chinese, for all their gigantic and absolutely awe-inspiring successes, they really are not in the position to provide that much for Russia, maybe some semiconductors, but that's about it. And here it is. Again, we go back to 2019, and if you can, you take a look at it, and it is Vladimir Putin's statement. He states this when talking to Valdai, and again, it's almost 4 years ago. He's speaking, and I'm translating it to you, that I know that I will not disclose big secret, but it will become absolutely clear. But we do help our Chinese partners to create the system, or early warning system of the missile attack. Be that missile attacks, ballistic missiles, or be that cruise missiles. And the question is, in this case, is irresistible. It's not only warranted, it's absolutely irresistible. If China is that great technologically, why Russia actually built China this advanced system? And this is the fact. Only two countries have those. It is United States and Russia. And Russian early warning system actually is better than the American one. But so here it is, Russia helping China to build that system. If you look attentively now at the submarine fleet, for example, Chinese submarine fleet, nuclear power submarines, they are not in the same league as Russian or American submarines. And you go on and on and on with this, and you begin to recognize that, yeah, China cannot provide that much to Russia. Maybe some ammunition, but I don't think so. Russia needs Chinese ammunition if China produces anything like 152 millimeter shells, rounds, or what have you. So, and obviously this is again the sheer propaganda on the American side, which is absolutely desperate, trying to find a way out with saving face. What, of course, they thought would be great, outstanding success, because they are not very bright people. And when you begin to look at it, it kind of like begins to really ring the bell. And to understand this, I can give you even more proof. Here it is, and this is now, it's 6 years ago. Russia-China signed contract on supply of anti-ship missiles. And if Russia providing S-400 air defense complexes, Sukhoi Su-35 jets wasn't enough, China was buying like crazy also Russia's anti-shipping missiles. And here is the issue. I mean, ask yourself this warranted and irresistible question. If China is so amazing technologically, why she continues to buy Russian technology? Well, the answer is on the surface. You saw yourself what Kamak 919 is. It's pretty much American-European commercial jet. It's not Chinese by any stretch of imagination, because it's basically made by Combined West. And of course, nobody argues with the fact that obviously Airbus is a superb company and Boeing used to be outstanding company. So obviously, they bring this incredible experience which Chinese do not have. Russia brings, for example, for both her domestic commercial airliners, such things as PD-14 engine, which is in serial production, PD-8 engine, which is coming up for the serial production, and PD-35, which should start tests at somewhere 26, 27, I believe, for Russian-Chinese joint venture in terms of the wide body CR929. So yeah, it's kind of obvious. And again, this is difficult to explain for people who have degree in economics or MBAs, that actually, while iPhones are important, but here's my phone, it's kind of Samsung. The first thing I buy in iPhones when my ones die out is how cheap they are. That's the only thing. I don't even know what the model of Samsung I have, because obviously I don't need them. But for some people, they think that iPhone with those useless gizmos is somehow high tech. Guys, you should see what net-centric warfare is. And I'm talking about on the level of division and higher. You saw yourself what is the Russian center of the combat control of the Russian armed forces is. And China doesn't have it at this level. They do not have, they are not designed to operate within the net-centric warfare paradigm. Only two countries do that. It is obviously the United States and Russia. China is not there, my friends. China main battle tanks, well, they are okay, but they're not outstanding. And when you begin to go over it, then you see yourself that yes, Chinese produce enormous amount of the surface ships, outstanding, some ships outstanding, but when you look at the submarine forces, I'm sorry, it's the fact of life. They are nowhere, not even in the same universe compared to US and Russian submarine forces. This is all related to the Chinese industries. Chinese are outstanding in producing mass products. They do have some outstanding scientific achievements. But there is also another thing. Compare how many piloted or manned space flights Russia conducts, and how many of them United States conducts, and then China. That explains a little bit to you, and for people who deal with the actual real economy and real high tech, they will see it immediately. And that is why people have to understand that no matter how incredibly huge Chinese achievements, and we have to applaud them for that, are, especially in the issue of the practical warfare, and especially of the issue of tying together warfare and national strategies and combat command and command and control of the large forces. United States is not even close to Russia, but that's a whole other story altogether. And this is what people have to understand when they speak about Chinese and Russians being kind of junior or senior partner. Everybody brings their own kind of thing on the table. And of course, to understand how much we are screwed up, all of us, due to this political guys, let me just demonstrate you how clueless they are. Here's one of the pieces from yesterday. And one of the presidential hopefuls calls on their what's his name, Vivek Ramaswamy, he asks to, just start peace talks, and because he wants to show that China is really interested in prolonging the war, it's not up to China. And when he begins to make the basically analogies, draw analogies towards Vietnam, with Vietnam, I mean, he's absolutely clueless. He doesn't understand what he is talking about. And there are many Chinese officers which are present in Russia's general staff, in Russia's command centers, and I'm pretty sure they are present in somewhere in combat units who are learning. And the question is not that China is interested in prolonging or otherwise of the conflict. It is not up to China, and Russia in this case it takes a leading role, because I said it before, I will reiterate it again. Russia is fighting not only for Russia today. Russia is demilitarizing NATO, and that plays directly into the hands of China, because obviously if, let's say, imagine the situation would have happened the other way around, with United States and NATO trying to take on China before going to Ukraine. China would have had a huge issue defending. They certainly would have been able to bloody the NATO's and American noses, but it would have been touch and go in naval sense, and who knows. In terms of the PR and political victory, it was a touch and go. It would have been touch and go for China, because much of its fleet would have been indeed sunk, and then, you know what, you don't have fleet, you cannot do much about Taiwan. And so that has to be kept in mind, and many people still do not understand. And to demonstrate to you what we're talking about, look at this. Chinese are great at copying. Nobody says it's not a talent. It is a very important talent. But look at this. Here's the Chinese railgun, which they were testing it for a while now. They kind of shoot it. They stated that they shot it at 250 kilometers range, and after that we didn't hear much of it. However, just look at this. This railgun, Chinese railgun, appeared when the United States started to dabble with this railgun, until it happened this way. It was in 2021, and United States completely ditched the railgun, and they stated correctly, by the way, one of very few very smart decisions which the United States stated, that they are hypersonic missiles, when they understood that they losing their, well, they actually lost their hypersonic race in terms of especially anti-shipping missiles. And when you look at their Mach 10 almost Zircon 3M22 with its range of 1500 kilometers, and even longer versions are coming. So what are you going to do with this railgun with the 25 kilogram shell, which flies with the speed of Mach 7 at the range of 250 kilometers? Useless. But Chinese, guess what? They got into this race, and they continue to deal with the railgun for a while, but the point is they still continue to buy anti-shipping missiles from Russia. And of course, we do not know if China will be provided with zircons or kinzhals, apart from China having her own type of the ballistic hypersonic vehicles, glide vehicles. I don't know. I assume there will be some technology transfer, and as Larry correctly speculates, but he speculates professionally, that we might see some kind of deformalization. It doesn't mean that it will happen necessarily, but Comrade Z will be visiting Moscow in March, evidently, and if the some kind of the military pact is signed, I mean, it's over. For the Combined West, it's over. There's no discussion of this anymore. Anybody who has any brains left in their head, it is clear what is going on, and that is why Burns, together with other people, Blinken and other, continue to behave themselves absolutely low class, I mean, uneducated hacks, inventing stories and spreading all kinds of rumors, because that's the only thing they can do. And I'm on the record. They are good only at PR. And again, anybody who actually subscribed to the policies of Biden administration, I mean, you have to start question their integrity, and this is the only thing I wanted to tell you today, especially when, as it is related to China. And I hope this helps you a little bit to and conclude this month. And this is the first anniversary, obviously, of the of Russia's special military operations, and we will be talking more in terms of the C-traps coming soon, because things are changing dramatically actually at the front. So this is my speech for you today, guys, and I hope you enjoyed it. As always, I really appreciate support of my wonderful patrons, and those who can support me, please support me on the Patreon and buy me a coffee or two, and of course subscribe to my channel. And guys, have a nice week ahead of you, and I'll be talking to you later. Bye bye.